Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. You're watching top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region. And first and foremost, shifting our focus to Texas, where heavy rains have caused flooding in eastern part of Texas over the weekend. From Dallas to Grimes County, residents woke to flooded or damaged roads after intense lightning storms. ABC affiliate WFAA reported high rainfall totals across southern North Texas and Central Texas, where flooding is most severe. Meanwhile, affiliate KTRK in Houston issued a flood watch for several counties, including Chambers, Grimes, Harris, and Montgomery. Meanwhile, on your screens, the drone footage showing the extent of flooding from intense rain in East Texas. The video also shows road damage after heavy rains over there. Take a look. Now in Houston and surrounding areas, heavy rains triggered high waters, flooding neighborhoods and prompting over 400 rescues. Residents remain stranded on rooftops and roads submerged in murky water. Many prepare to evacuate as the situation worsens. A flood watch remains in place with forecasters warning of more rainfall and the potential for major flooding. About 11 million people in Texas and Oklahoma are under flood warnings and watches just this past weekend. And from North America, shifting our focus to South America, to Brazil, where local authorities and volunteers rescued residents stranded in the flooded town of Canoas in southern Brazil on Sunday, as speedboats navigated inundated streets for people still trapped in their homes. Thousands of people have been stranded in Rio Grande do Sul, the state, without food or water after devastating floods that have already killed at least 78. Heavy rains that caused the flooding in Rio Grande do Sul have displaced more than 1,15,000 people. Flooding from recent storms in the past few days have impacted more than two-thirds of the nearly 500 cities in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which borders Uruguay and Argentina. The rains also triggered landslides and the partial collapse of a dam at a small hydroelectric power plant.
Massive flooding caused by heavy rain in Brazil's southern state of Rio Grande do Sul has pushed the death toll up at least 78 people by the end of Sunday, with nearly 120,000 people displaced. President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and his cabinet arrived in the region on Sunday morning to discuss rescue and reconstruction efforts with local authorities.
I know that we have many state roads that need repair. I want to tell you that I'm not worried because the federal government, through the Ministry of Transportation, will help you recover the state roads.
Volunteers with boats, jet skis, or even simply swimming have helped ongoing rescue efforts. The death toll could still drastically increase as over 100 people were reported missing on Sunday, according to the State Civil Defense Authority. Flooding from the storms over the past few days has affected more than two-thirds of the nearly 500 cities in the state, which sits on the border with Uruguay and Argentina. An Instagram video from the Army's Aviation Command showed an officer hitting the roof of the house with a brick to rescue the child and pull him to safety. Reuters blurred the toddler's face to protect his identity. The toddler and his relatives were trapped in the floods in Lajeado in southern Brazil. Floods have destroyed roads and bridges in several cities. The rain also triggered landslides and the partial collapse of a dam at a small hydroelectric power plant, leaving nearly 500,000 people without power on Sunday evening.
Meanwhile, Pope Francis sent his wishes to Orthodox Christians and Eastern Catholic churches on Sunday as they celebrated Easter. The Pope also prayed for the victims of the floods in Brazil.
With much affection, I send my best wishes to the brothers and sisters of the Orthodox churches and some Eastern Catholic churches who celebrate Holy Easter today, according to the Julian calendar. May the risen Lord fill all their communities with joy and peace and comfort those who are facing difficulties. To them, Happy Easter. I assure my prayers for the people of the state of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil affected by great floods. May the Lord welcome the dead and comfort their families and those who had to leave their homes.
But it's not just the Americas. Severe weather has also wreaked havoc in southwestern Germany, with emergency services and residents in a hurry to clear up the aftermath left by overnight thunderstorms, heavy rainfall and hail. The sudden onslaught of severe weather followed several sunny days and summer-like temperatures, catching many in Germany off guard. The city of Frankfurt and surrounding regions bore the brunt of the storm, with up to 50 liters of rain per square meter pouring down within a few hours, flooding the streets completely. The weather is expected to calm down significantly in southwest Germany. However, there is still a possibility of isolated thunderstorms with heavy rain and storms cropping up from Saturday evening onwards. Well, time for us to slip into a quick break here. News and updates continues on the other side. Keep watching News9 Live.
We are trying a lot of experiments, innovations and ideas.
We came out with a new format in audio, which is audio series.
Listening for content-oriented company in India, which is a very unique proposition.
When we look at audio in general, we had music, which is like extremely old format, and then we had podcasts.
A natural extension for Pocket FM is to move from Hindi to regional content. I think I'd love to see their FY24 numbers, which they claim will be close to 1,000 crores. I think there are talks of them to raise another $80 to $100 million of funding.
This and more. Streaming on News9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
20,000 people dead and counting. What's happening in the United States of America is unprecedented. You will have to pay for this.
Welcome back. You're watching News9 Live. Scorching heat wave has swept through Myanmar, breaking temperature records in April as per the Myanmar Department of Met and Hydrology. In April this year, more than 10 regions in Myanmar experienced daily temperatures exceeding the previous records documented by local Met stations, according to official Met data that has now been put out. Now, many areas in central Myanmar's Magwe and Mandalay regions have frequently appeared on the global list of hottest places. The unprecedented heat wave has triggered troubles for people's daily lives in the country, with reports of multiple cases of individuals fainting, even dying from heat stroke across the country. Moving on, video from Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency showed the extent of the flooding triggered by heavy rain and rescuers evacuating survivors in rubber boats. Authorities said that 14 people were killed due to the floods and landslides. The early morning floods in Luwu Regency affected more than 2,000 families and damaged more than 1,900 houses, though water levels have since started to recede in some of these areas. Search and rescue efforts are underway in Luwu Regency in Indonesia's South Sulawesi province. Meanwhile, people were forced to use canoes to move into the Burundian capital of Bujumbura as Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya was flooded. The flooding in Dadaab camp displaced near 20,000 people, many of whom had arrived in recent years after fleeing severe drought in neighboring Somalia. Now, in Burundi, around 32,000 refugees are living in areas hit by floods, 500 of whom require urgent assistance. Access to food and other necessities is becoming increasingly difficult as people have to pay high transport fees to use canoes to reach markets and other amenities. People had been forced to flee, losing their homes again, showing how forcibly displaced people continue to be on the front lines of the climate crisis. Floods continue to hit parts of East Africa, impacting thousands of people, including refugees in the region, and leaving many of them homeless. And whilst we talk about Kenya, let's also throw some light on what's happening in Sudan. Hunger and starvation are spreading across Sudan as the war that erupted in April in 2023, last year, between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Force, the RSF, shows no sign of abating. Parts of the country are on the brink of famine. Agriculture has been ravaged as farmers have had their harvested crops stolen by the RSF. Hunger, not just fighting, is now driving displacement as people leave home in search of food. Malaria and other diseases are spreading among the displaced. Key aid hubs have been looted by the Rapid Support Forces and its allied militias, and international aid arriving in Sudan is being blocked by the military from reaching people in areas where starvation has now more than just set in. Almost 18 million people in Sudan are facing quote-unquote high levels of acute food insecurity as per the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification IPC, which is a globally recognized hunger monitor. And take a look at this. An incessant heat wave scorching the Philippines has left farmers unsettled as the above average temperatures has put their crops and livelihoods at risk. The country's weather agency said that heat index, the actual temperature felt by the body to include relative humidity, is expected to remain at a record 45 degrees Celsius in the range which it classes as dangerous conditions that can trigger heat stroke from prolonged exposure. People in the town of Manila in Philippines suffered extreme heat as the country's weather agency said that the heat index is expected to remain at that record 45 degrees Celsius mark this entire week. Locals rolled out mobile showers to help locals battling extreme heat and facing power and water shortages as well. The Philippines, along with countries in Southeast Asia, have been grappling with extreme heat, suspending classes and warning people to take shelter and avoid prolonged exposure due to the possibilities of a heat stroke. But this is why we must look at it more closely. The sweltering heat that we're talking about in the Philippines can curb farm production, disrupt water and power, and weigh on businesses. But it also takes a toll on students, hampering the Southeast Asian nation's efforts to catch up to its neighbors in terms of education.
Heat Indices says it's felt like a whopping 122 degrees Fahrenheit in parts of the Philippines in recent days, as El Niño ratchets up humid summer heat that began in March. As a result, thousands of schools have suspended classes because of sweltering temperatures, affecting more than 3.6 million students, according to official data. It's another in a series of obstacles facing children in the Philippines. According to an international study of education systems, it scores among the lowest in the world in maths, science, and reading, partly because of years of inadequate remote learning during the pandemic. 23-year-old student Kurt Mahuse is a senior in high school after his education stalled during lockdowns. Now, he says the heat is unbearable.
Here in the Philippines, it's extremely hot now. The heat burns my skin. It's not like the usual summer heat that is tolerable. Now I can barely stay long out in the heat.
It's part of a band of heat spreading across South and Southeast Asia this year, exacerbated by El Niño and climate change, and it makes it harder for children to simply learn. According to Save the Children Philippines, children are particularly vulnerable to heat-related illnesses including dizziness, vomiting, and fainting when exposed to extreme heat for long periods. And high school teacher Medea Santos says it's become a struggle to get through the workday.
We are also affected. For example, me at my age, when the temperature is really high, my blood pressure shoots up. I have to make sure that I take my medicine every day for my blood pressure and maintenance. When teaching, we are also affected because it is uncomfortable. Because of the extreme heat, my back gets soaked with sweat and sometimes I get very dizzy.
Local media say the relentless heat is not expected to dissipate and has a 50% chance of intensifying this week. Students and teachers are worried about how much more learning they will lose out on, especially in areas where access to gadgets and the internet is sporadic and sparse. The state weather agency on Monday forecast that temperatures in the area around Manila could reach nearly 100 degrees in the next 3 days, while the heat index, what the body actually feels, is expected to remain higher at a record 113 degrees, in the range which it classifies as dangerous, because conditions can trigger heat stroke from prolonged exposure.
Time for us to slip into a quick commercial breather here. Lots more right on the other side. Keep watching News9 Live.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, that US markets has slowed down because of